Hello, welcome back to Just Sharon with your host, Sherry Murphy. Today we're going to be diving into getting better results. Getting better results in our jobs, getting better results with our day, getting better results with relationships, right? Do you have those relationships where you're like, oh my gosh, I just wish that this person would understand this or get this. Do you know what I'm saying with that? And it's like, man, if I could just, do you want to know the secret? Do you want to know the secret of how to get them to do that? Yeah, well, there is none. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. There is none. Because we can't make other people. So we're going to be focusing on things that we can control. I heard this great piece of information from Quote of the Day show with Sean Croxton. It's a podcast. And on the show this week, he had Lisa Nichols. And she had everybody in the group that she was speaking with all like raise their hand and like repeat after her and say, I retire. And everyone had to say, I retire from the converting business. So like converting people from this to that and helping save them and helping change them. So I retire from the converting business because I suck at it. Because basically we all suck at it because it just doesn't work. So let's focus on the things that we can control. But then she says, you're trying to convert them and there's nothing wrong with them to them, right? So I'm done. I think I'm done. I'm totally not done, but I'm hoping to shift my mindset a little bit on that. For things to change, I must change. What do I have control over? And how can I change so that I can get different results in our lives? The understanding us as humans and what kind of makes up how we act and what we think and us as humans. Okay, so the first thing, this is called the cognitive triangle. You can Google it. There's 100 models of it. And here it is. Okay, so first of all, there are our thoughts. And over here, we've got our feelings. And then finally, over here, we have our actions. Thoughts, feelings, and actions. Now, you've probably heard of this before, but they are all interconnected. They all affect each other. So if we want things to change, the good news is that if we can get one to shift, then generally the rest of them change as well. I have been sharing this information with Quantum Learning. I work for a company called Quantum Learning at quantumlearning.com. And we use this in regards to talking about keeping our students in the right state of mind in class, like keeping them resourceful. And I've been talking about it for 18 years. However, when I went to therapy with my husband and the therapist was talking to us about this, I see it and I'm like, yeah, I know that, right? I know it. And then the funny thing is he's listening to us like kind of talk back and forth, and he's like pointed out to us that we are fabulous at talking about our thoughts and talking about our actions, like phenomenal. Like, conversations, we are very clear. So this hit me one day, the power of this, when I was talking with my husband and he was, going through something that he was upset about and, thoughts, actions. And I'm like, okay, so hold on a second, because I still wasn't getting this part. And I just said, well, how do you feel? And he sat there for a little bit and he's like, alone. And I was like, oh. It was amazing that right, sharing feelings. First of all, gentlemen have the stereotype of not being feelings people, but man, amazing to me how little I connected to this whole thing of feelings. In fact, I know feelings. Yeah, I got happy, you got sad, you got angry, you got scared. However, I did not know this. Literally, my downstairs in my fridge here, I didn't know that there were all these feelings. My family and I, when we are communicating with each other, we make sure that we communicate our thoughts, what happened, the actions or the person's actions, and then we grab our feeling sheet sometimes because we typically will say frustrated and angry a lot. And so just learning a lot about those emotions. This has helped in that category alone. I also put it into play when there were things that are happening that are annoying or not going well. For example, one thing I can think of, I'm a mom of 3, is chores. I don't like chores. My kids don't like chores. And so whenever we bring up chores, there seems to be this outbreak of negativity, attitudes, arguing, all this stuff starts happening. I'm like, all right, what do I want to work on next? What do I want to go more smoothly in our lives? I was like, chores. So I decide, I'm going to have better thoughts about chores, and I'm gonna like have this positive thought, and that's gonna make me positive, and we're gonna have fun. In fact, I might even change the name and not even call them chores. I'll call them something else to like bring a positive vibe to these things called chores. And so I did, and I changed my thoughts, and I was a little happier, and it didn't really work. And I'm like, okay, now, right, when we change something, it's not always going to get us the results immediately, right? Like nothing's perfect. However, that doesn't mean that we give up. So I'm back to the drawing board, and then I just discovered that, you know what, there's just a way I just need to be removed from it for a while because I have these negative thoughts and feelings. So we came up with, instead of me barking or talking or sharing the chores or like holding people accountable, here's the chores that you have to do, here's what's next, Dean, and telling my kids where they needed to go. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to take me out of it, and we're just going to be listed here on this dry erase board. And then we'll have a little check mark box, and when they're done, and we'll just assign them, all that. Well, that has worked wonders. So now they're all there. The kids in the morning, they know first initial in one of the boxes of things that they want to do. There's a certain time it needs to be done by. We do responsibility before privileges. And, you know, so it just has gone much better because I changed the action. So I tried changing my thoughts. That didn't go so well. I tried that for a few weeks. However, going to just change some actions. And again, we've had great conversations about like, yeah, we all have to do things we don't want to do. So what else can you do? You can try and bring things in that are positive. And, you know, so now if my kids wear headphones, they like to listen to music as they're doing their chores, whatever works, right? So there's just an example of how like, you know, changing one of these things up can change a result. So what about you? So sometimes during these vlogs, you can go ahead and pause and think and write, and right, that's such a cool feature about this. Like what in your life do you want to shift and change, and how could this help with that? Now we're moving on down to here. This is not mine. This is called The Frame. And the founders or creators of The Frame are a company called Top 20. This is their book, Top 20 Parents, Top 20 Teachers. I can neither confirm nor deny that I've read it cover to cover, taken a whole bunch of notes. Their website is top20training.com. And I recommend, if you want to take a look at any of their books, that you buy it from their website, because for some reason they're more expensive on Amazon. I don't know. I just ordered one off of their website super fast. They're super awesome people. They have this thing called The Frame. And The Frame, it's like how we frame things in our minds. So it's very similar to this, but for me, this is like information, and this to me is more of like an action. I like see the picture of the frame, and I use the terminology of the frame. It helps me put it into action. Okay, so what we see affects how we feel, affects what we do, and affects what we get. Okay, so for example, I saw chores as annoying and as a burden, and so then I was annoyed, and then my annoyingness affect how I talk to my kids, and I would roll my eyes. I got that feedback from my kids, and then I was just getting those same results. So me taking time kind of taking me out of it, I am now seeing chores differently. I feel differently. I'm acting differently, and then getting different results with that. So that's how we can kind of put it into the frame. Think about other things that we see, other things we want to shift. Let's take an example of my daughter. I have a teenage daughter, and so I can see her in many ways. So if I see her as a hormonal teenager who is tired, lazy, sometimes sounds entitled, I could call her a brat. Like if I saw my daughter like this, then I'm going to feel annoyed, agitated, possibly even defensive when the sarcastic comments come out. Then I might puff up back at her and shoot some sarcastic comments right back at her. That's what I'm doing, right? So I'm rolling my eyes, I'm huffing and puffing, I'm doing all those things that I don't want her to do, yet I'm doing them, and then it affects our relationship. So instead, I choose to see her, first of all, as a responsible, confident, honest, delightful, beautiful, friendly, funny, playful. I mean, I can go on and on here. Teenager who has teenage things going on. So I know what I need to know about a teenager and their brain and how it works and how they react. And so therefore, I can feel empathetic First of all, I see her in a better light, and I understand that she is at the developmental stage that she's at, so I can feel that empathy of, I know that she's like shooting a sarcastic comment at me right now. And I see it differently. I don't see it as personal against me, and so therefore, I don't shoot the sarcastic comments back anymore. Instead, I'll just kind of breathe and walk away and say, hey, you know what? We'll talk about this later, or I will not engage in the sarcasm battle. Usually. I'm not saying I'm perfect. Remember, I am a person in process. I am not perfect. But way less of the, puffing up, well, yeah, well, I told you, or well, but I'm doing this, and I'm the parent. I mean, all the things that we can do with teenagers. I don't do that anymore. And so we have a different relationship. So how we see things affects all of this. Okay, I'll give another example. What about your job? Like, how do you see your job? So right now you might be thinking, oh, I don't know if this is my perfect job. I don't know if this is the job. Just a cool thing that I heard about. It's from Jim Rohn again. And he says, the major question to ask on the job is not, what am I getting here? The major question to ask is, what am I becoming here? So if you're in a situation that might not be, you're not getting everything that you want, and it might not be your dream job, asking yourself, like, what am I becoming here? If we're not becoming something somewhere, then that's something to take a look at. Then that's hard to stay resourceful. Okay, so how do we see our job? Do we see it as exhausting and horrible, or do we see it as a place where we can grow? Do we see it as a place where we can hang out with friends? I mean, I don't know, but how we look at our job affects how we feel, affects what we do, affects what we get, right? Like, think about a job. If you would feel when you went to that job, like empowered, trusted, joyful, then think about the efforts that you would put into your work. And the frame is really cool because when you have other people in your life who also know of the frame, then you can speak of the frame. Like when you're just chatting or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, I need a reframe. I know I'm seeing this in a way that's not healthy or not productive. And so I just need a reframe. And it's also neat when you have people in your life who will hold you accountable and bring this stuff up to you. Like, yeah, how are you choosing to see this? It's like, yeah, it starts here. So how do we see people in this world? Like, think of how many people you interact with on a day-to-day basis, whether it be at your job, whether it be at your home, about the grocery store, how we see situations at the grocery store. One of the challenges that I have been putting on myself is to see people in a different light. I'm really good at finding negative. I just am. Really good at it. So I've been working really hard in seeing positives in people, seeing people as their best selves. When I was a classroom teacher, seeing our students as their best selves, speaking to that best self. One of the things that helps with this is understanding, like, to separate people's actions or behaviors from who they are. Like, how many of you have ever done an action that really wasn't in line with who you are, who you want to be, or who you strive to be? Right? Okay, I can think of one in the past 5 years that I've done, and that is that a friend asked me a question, and I told an untruthful answer. I lied to my friend. Now, the cool thing about this, right, this is integrity too, right? So we've got, who we are and our actions. When they align, that's integrity. The good thing is I realized in that moment when I did that I could repair that, and I could bring both of those to be more aligned and go back into my integrity. So I called that friend. And I acknowledged it, and I apologized, and I owned it, because I did. I just flat out said something that wasn't true. So think about, if you have kids at home. Another example is my 4-year-old, when he was in preschool. I think it might have been the summer camp at the preschool. He bit a kid or two before. I didn't call him a biter, because that would be talking about who he is. His behavior is separate from who he is. So instead, I would share with my son that you are a caring and kind boy, and we don't bite, and then try and find out what was the cause of the biting. So think about, even your kids at home. If we call them something, and that's going to start defining who they are. So if you hear oh, well, you're lazy, or I'm not surprised you didn't you never do your homework, that kind of begins to help a young child define who they are, but we want them to define themselves by being their best selves. Seeing people for their best selves and understanding that we are sometimes out of alignment ourselves, yes? When I was at the grocery store, how you get in those lines, and something happened, and so all the lines were long, and they were so long. In that moment, I was getting ready to join in with all the people around me of oh my God, they should have more workers, or don't they prepare for Sundays at the grocery store, and all the chiming in of the, complaining that happens. And instead I was okay, I am not getting out of here anytime soon. This is a fantastic opportunity for me to practice patience, because I need some work in the area of patience. So this is an opportunity for me to breathe. What can I do in this moment? And it just completely shifted around me, and all the people who were going off about, what the grocery store is doing wrong. We've all been in that position when we've worked a job, right? Something isn't going wrong. And it's really wonderful when someone understands the situation and doesn't blame us, and just understands that there's a situation. Maybe someone called in sick, who knows what the situation is, but just to breathe and make the most of that moment. That was a total reframe moment. Seeing people and speaking to people for their best selves is something that, like I said, I've been working on. Reframing, keeping in mind the cognitive triangle and how we are made up to create different results in your life. Take a moment to think about what things do you want to try and shift and change and improve to get better results in your life. Cheers to better results.